It's amazing, isn't it? The more we rely on search engines, the less neutral they seem. They're everywhere, shaping how we see the world.
That's right. It really makes you think about what gets prioritized. And coming from a philosophical background, you're in a great position to explore all of this, search engine mechanics, implications, the whole thing, examining these systems critically.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're doing in this deep dive, unpacking how search engines work and what that means for information access. Our guide is the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's entry on search engine ethics. It's a fantastic resource for this.
It is a philosophically rigorous analysis. We'll be synthesizing its key insights, giving you a clearer view of the dynamics at play.
Perfect. So first things first, what are search engines?
At their core, as Halavez put it, they're information retrieval systems.
Yeah.
You use keywords to find digital text across a vast network. Simple, right?
You'd think so. Type in a query, get results. But the source emphasizes that it's way more complicated than that. It's not just technology, it's the interface, a major economic force, a societal influencer.
It's multifaceted. And to really get it, you have to consider the technology and these broader roles. Blank argues that understanding the tech is crucial for any analysis.
Makes sense. Maybe a quick history lesson is in order. The source outlines 5 distinct eras of search engine development.
Starting with the pre-internet period, from the 1940s to the 1970s.
Even then, people were grappling with information overload. Vannevar Bush's concept of the memex comes to mind.
Fascinating, right? His idea of associative indexing, linking information like human thought, it inherently prioritizes some connections over others, foreshadowing bias concerns.
Then there's the UNIX finger utility. Basic search, but it hinted at accessing personal information, which raised questions about privacy, monitoring, even back then.
Exactly. Early tools, but they set the stage for both the capabilities and the philosophical questions about access, knowledge, privacy.
Fast forward to the early internet, the pre-web 1980s. TCP/IP, FTP, those sorts of things.
Fundamental protocols for large-scale data exchange across networks. More information, a greater need to find it. That's when we saw Archie, Veronica, Jughead.
Big steps, letting users search file names, even content within files. It's incredible how far it's come.
Looking back, each advance broadened those initial concerns. More data meant both efficient retrieval and potential surveillance.
And then, the 1990s, the early web. The first website, HTTP, HTML, the Mosaic browser. Game changer.
It was. Web content exploded, leading to a new breed of search engines. Excite, Lycos, InfoSeek, AltaVista, Ask.com, each with its own approach to indexing.
Vertical versus horizontal search, right. Some focused, others comprehensive. Ask.com versus AltaVista.
And remember the meta search engines. Hotbot, pulling results from multiple sources. Their decline as horizontal engines improved shows how quickly things were changing.
The source also points out something crucial. Web accessibility meant more personal information online, early data aggregation. Privacy questions start to loom large.
Exactly. As everyday details ended up online, they became discoverable, analyzable. Individual autonomy, informational self-determination. These concepts become key.
Web 2.0, 2000 to 2019. Wikis, blogs, social networks, user-generated content took over.
And search engines had to change how they ranked results. It wasn't just keywords and links anymore, but user intent, personalization. Hinman, Zimmer, Halpern, Pariser, they all saw this coming.
The idea of the perfect personalized search sounds great in theory.
But as Halpern and Pariser argue, it's not a neutral process. Algorithms make inferences, shaping what we see. It's opaque, potentially limiting. No standard Google anymore, as Pariser put it, are shared information landscape fragments.
We also saw DuckDuckGo emerge, emphasizing privacy, no personalization, and discoverable search engines like Shodan and Thinkful, which, as we'll discuss, have their own set of issues.
Choices for privacy, expansion beyond traditional web search, it was a lot to take in.
And now, the AI-enhanced web, 2020 to the present. AI and machine learning are everywhere in search.
Google adopted BERT and MU. Other engines followed suit. They're getting better at understanding language, handling complex queries.
And then there's generative AI, ChatGPT in Bing, Gemini in Google. It's not just finding information, but AI synthesizing it for us.
The pace of change is rapid, and this new layer of AI brings a whole new set of considerations. We'll dig into those soon.
So, a whirlwind history tour. Now, let's talk about the core issues. The source calls out the potential for a philosophically problematic situation because of our reliance on these tools. Bias, for one.
Search engine bias. It covers a few things: non-neutrality, manipulation, objectivity, or the lack thereof.
Non-neutrality first. The idea that technology itself isn't value-free, it embodies, promotes values through its design.
Right. Bray, Friedman, and Nissenbaum, they've argued that computer tech is inherently value-laden. Bray's disclosive computer ethics, value-sensitive design, they're all about bringing those values to light.
Internet cookies are a perfect example. How they're designed affects consent, privacy, autonomy, trust. It's not just a technical feature.
Exactly. Cookies and how search engines use them reflect a choice, often prioritizing tracking for advertising, potentially at the expense of privacy and autonomy.
Now, manipulation of search results. This seems to be a big concern. The idea that what we see is deliberately skewed.
It's a real issue. Introna and Nissenbaum, Epstein and Robertson, Wainhoven and Van Haren, they've all written about it. Two main drivers: advertiser interests and the tricks used to game the system.
Advertising first. Search engines rely on ad revenue, which raises questions about conflict of interest.
Absolutely. Even Brin and Page, the Google founders, were worried about that. They thought ad-supported engines could be biased. And advertising has evolved, from banners to paid placements that look like regular results. Diaz writes about this a lot.
It's not just which ads, but the acceptance criteria. There are concerns about arbitrary rules, blurred lines between ads and real content. And research shows these sponsored results affect what people click on.
The way it's presented can subtly influence us. Bhattacharya's work shows just how powerful these placements can be.
Then there's SEO, search engine optimization, trying to game the system for better rankings.
It's a constant arms race.
Yeah.
Early on, it was about meta tags, keywords. But algorithms got smarter, so those tricks stopped working. Now it's about links, being seen as an authority. Blank and Diaz talk about how this often benefits larger players.
So even without ads, the algorithm itself can skew things, favoring certain types of content.
Like Hinman said, to be is to be indexed on Google. Ranking high is crucial, regardless of quality or relevance.
Let's talk about objectivity. Tricky concept when it comes to search engines.
Very tricky. The source separates objectivity of criteria from objectivity of results.
Early on, page visits and links seemed objective, a measure of popularity, but personalized algorithms changed everything.
Think about searching for eagles. One person might be looking for birds, another for a football team. The algorithm guesses and tailors the results. No single universal ranking.
Some, like Blank and Goldman, question whether we even want complete objectivity. Goldman suggests personalization, more subjectivity, might solve objectivity problems. Interesting idea.
It raises the question, individual relevance versus a shared, objective base of information. This fragmentation affects how we talk to each other, how we see the world.
Which leads us to opacity, the lack of transparency. The algorithms are black boxes.
Hinman calls it the problem of algorithm. Proprietary, secret. We don't know how results are made, how to assess bias.
And it's not just the algorithms. Search companies are often vague about data collection. This fuels privacy concerns.
That's the whole ecosystem. Data collection, analysis, usage, all very opaque.
Okay, privacy. The source identifies two categories of concern.
Users as data subjects and individuals as subjects of searches. Let's start with the latter.
Finding personal information online, often without consent, is a big issue. Anyone can become a target.
And there's so much data out there. People don't realize how much is accessible, how easily it's aggregated.
The source mentions some disturbing examples. Search engines used to track locations, sometimes with bad intentions. Docker stalker maps, for instance.
In the tragic case of Amy Boyer, publicly available information led her stalker right to her. This shows the real-world danger of accessible data.
It's not just physical safety either. Employers routinely use search engines to vet candidates, scrutinizing social media.
Some say it's public information, but what about information posted by others without consent? The Lee example from the source is a good illustration. Control over online representation, fairness, it's all in question.
RateMyProfessor.com too. Students can post opinions that impact a professor's career. Neither Lee nor the professors had control over that information.
It's about balancing access with privacy rights in the digital age. The very definition of private versus public is changing.
NPI and PPI, right? Non-public versus public personal information. NPI often has legal protection, but PPI generally doesn't.
And there's growing concern about the use of PPI, even seemingly harmless stuff. It can build detailed profiles, lead to decisions without consent. Some argue for stronger protection for PPI.
Now let's switch gears. Privacy concerns where users are the data subjects, monitored by the companies themselves.
Search queries, routinely collected and archived. Many didn't even know it was happening. Zuboff's point is perfect. While we search Google, Google searches us.
It came to light in 2006 with Google search history logging and the government subpoenas for search records in 2005.
Individual queries might seem harmless, but aggregated, they reveal a lot. Interests, beliefs, health, social connections. It can lead to inaccurate profiling, discrimination.
And it's not just queries. Cookies track us across the web. Pariser talks about the sheer number of signals Google uses. All that data from their apps, it's data valence, as Zimmer calls it.
Prediction engines, anticipating behavior, click signals, turned into commodities for advertisers. Axiom, for example, gathers incredibly detailed profiles.
The AOL data release showed that anonymized data isn't always so anonymous.
Re-identification is a risk, even with anonymization. Nissenbaum differentiates between monitoring, which is commercial, and surveillance, which is governmental.
Government surveillance of search queries post 9/11, the Patriot Act, it all raises questions. Security versus privacy. Hinman asks, if they can access library records, why not search queries? Snowden's revelations only added to the concerns.
Hinman also worries about political influence, like the removal of Abu Ghraib photos. These platforms have immense power.
Speaking of power, let's talk about search engines and democracy. Censorship, threats to freedom. This gatekeeper role is key.
Absolutely. Early hoax of democratization empowering marginalized groups have been tempered. These platforms control what we see. Introna and Nissenbaum, Diaz, they all highlight this impact on democracy.
They're the gatekeepers, and the question becomes who decides what gets through. Both Diaz and Hinman say these decisions affect informed participation.
Information filtering, information cocoons, filter bubbles. Morozov, Sunstein, Lessig, they all talk about this. Algorithms silently personalize, creating invisible auto-propaganda, as Pariser says, a threat to informed citizenry.
Parrish's example. Searching for BP during the oil spill. Different results for different people. Personalized algorithms fragmenting information. Halpern says this reinforces biases, limits exposure to other views.
It's epistemic isolation. It can trap us in our own bubbles, hindering growth and critical thinking. Bad for public discourse.
Censorship, too. Search engine practices can actually reinforce censorship by governments.
China is a prime example, blocking information about Tiananmen Square, Free Tibet, the Dalai Lama. Google's initial compliance sparked debate, as Spinello writes. Don't be evil, but cooperating with censorship.
Some argued that Google's presence helped, even with restrictions. But there were criticisms about corporate responsibility, human rights. Yahoo, MSN, other U.S. companies complied, too. A complicated situation.
Google's policy change, the Dragonfly Project, ultimately canceled due to ethics concerns. It shows the tension between business and human rights. Hinman worries about Google's susceptibility to influence, not just from China, but from the U.S. too.
It's not just direct censorship. Google's power over traffic, their algorithm, it's a form of influence. Berners-Lee even expressed concerns about governments monitoring online activity. Hinman calls for accountability structures.
Transparency, accountability, those are crucial. Otherwise, these gatekeepers could really undermine democratic values.
Election interference, misinformation, the search engine manipulation effect, or SEM, as Epstein and Robertson call it.
Their research suggests that biased rankings can sway undecided voters. Subtly, powerfully. We might not even realize it's happening. 2016 U.S. elections, other countries too, it's a real concern.
Greater transparency, maybe even regulation, are needed to ensure information integrity, especially during elections.
Absolutely. Influencing opinion on that scale is a huge responsibility, and the lack of transparency in ranking raises serious concerns about potential abuse.
Last but not least, cybersecurity and the Internet of Things. This area seems less discussed when it comes to search engine ethics.
It's a newer concern. Privacy and data security are old news, but the IoT introduces new vulnerabilities. Webcams, smart speakers, wearables, often with weak security.
And we have discoverable search engines like Thingful and Shodan.
Thingful indexes locations of connected devices, which is a privacy risk. But Shodan is something else. It finds specific devices, systems, even critical infrastructure.
The source mentions Shodan being used to find parts of Iran's nuclear program. That's serious. Cyber warfare, cyber terrorism, cyber espionage.
Powerful tools, powerful risks. Ethical questions, need for safeguards, regulations to prevent misuse.
So much to consider. Let's move on to the companies themselves. Their moral accountability, their social responsibility. They're the gatekeepers, as the source emphasizes.
Hinman, Diaz, Tereo, and Floridi, Noble, they all stress this. But there's no agreement on the ethical principles that should guide them.
Hinman gives 4 reasons why they have this responsibility. access to information, informed citizenship, education, and the fact that they're profit-driven corporations. That last one seems especially relevant.
Absolutely. Profits versus fair, accurate, unbiased information. That's the ethical dilemma. Google getting into travel, prioritizing their own flight search, that's one example.
And the EU antitrust charges for favoring their shopping service, using their search dominance for an unfair advantage.
Voice search adds another layer. Competition between assistants, default options, potential for bias there too.
Carr worries about commercial control restricting knowledge. Hinman sees knowledge control as a public trust, even in private hands. The debate about algorithm transparency ties into all of this.
Elgesim says full transparency might not be feasible, but companies should be clear about their policies, stick to them. Balance between secrets and public trust.
Legal liability, the right to erasure, fake news. Should companies be liable for content they link to?
In the U.S., the answer is generally no. They're service providers, not publishers. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
Europe's different. They see search engines as controllers of personal data. The right to erasure debate shows this difference.
The Mario Costeja Gonzalez case in Spain was key. He wanted Google to remove links about an old financial issue. The EU's right to erasure, part of GDPR, gives individuals the right to remove inaccurate or irrelevant data.
Privacy versus censorship, freedom of information, it was heated debate. Revenge porn shows how the right to erasure can prevent harm.
Bodice says sometimes preventing harm outweighs free speech concerns, but Tavani points out some logical fallacies in the arguments. And implementing this right is tough. Google's flooded with removal requests.
The European Court of Justice ruled that Google doesn't have to apply it globally. More questions about privacy in a global online world.
National laws, borderless internet, it's a tough one.
Fake news, it feels like the elephant in the room. Are search engines complicit?
Fake news, meaning deliberately false or misleading information disguised as real news, it's a big problem. Lipinski says non-defamatory fake news might be protected speech in the U.S., but do search engines, as gatekeepers, have a higher duty?
Shouldn't they remove or demote blatantly false content, like the right to erasure for irrelevant information?
Google's Code of Conduct talks about trust and integrity. Sending users to fake news undermines that right. But as of now, there are no clear policies on this. Social media is seen as the main culprit.
Which brings us to trust. Why is it so important for search engine companies?
Trust is everything. Philosophers like Bayer, Robbins, Walker, Govier, they all say so. Ethical trust, meaning fairness, data handling, privacy. Epistemic trust, meaning reliability, accuracy, impartiality of information.
Are these companies trustworthy? Do users trust their data policies? Do they deliver reliable information, especially with all the misinformation and bias out there?
And can we even trust corporations, algorithms? Margaret Urban Walker's diffuse default trust is relevant here. We expect good behavior from complex organizations like search engines, even without knowing the details.
This zone of default trust comes with expectations. Ethical conduct, reliable information. If companies fail, they lose trust, their legitimacy, their users.
Exactly. Earning and keeping trust is crucial in this complex, potentially manipulative information landscape. Like Google says, it's all about trust.
Lastly, AI-enhanced search. It seems like AI just amplifies the existing ethical problems.
It does. Algorithmic bias, perpetuating stereotypes. Noble talks about this a lot. The Google image recognition error, the Gemini image generation controversy. Those are examples.
More data collection for personalization, more privacy concerns, inferences, unconsented harvesting.
And new concerns about accuracy. AI can generate biased, outdated, even made-up information. Hallucinations, they call them. Some examples in Google's AI overviews have shown this.
Inaccuracies, opaque algorithms, that all erodes trust. A big hurdle for AI-enhanced search.
Absolutely. AI is changing search so fast. We need to focus on ethics now more than ever. Safeguards, ensuring these tools benefit humanity.
So we've covered a lot. Bias, transparency, privacy, democracy, security, accountability, and now AI, adding even more complexity.
These systems are powerful and changing rapidly, especially with AI. It makes you wonder, from your philosophical standpoint, what principles should guide their development? How do we make sure they serve humanity ethically?
And how do we as individuals navigate this information landscape? Think critically, stay autonomous. It's something we all need to think about.
There's a lot to explore here. Technology ethics, information ethics, political philosophy. It's a rich field with lots of great work to dive into.